October 5th will mark the 60th anniversary of the James Bond franchise. As an avid fan of the series, I have decided to commemorate that date by reviewing all of the films from my least favourite to my most favourite. Please be warned, these reviews will involve spoilers. Also, I will be including the 1967 James Bond spoof Casino Royale and the unofficial 1983 Bond film Never Say Never Again in my rankings. Octopussy is the 13th official James Bond film. In the film, James Bond must stop an exiled Afghan prince and a renegade Russian general from detonating an atomic bomb on a West German US airbase. It is one of the better Bond films of the 1980s. The fascinating thing about Octopussy is that it mixes the mystery and intrigue of From Russia with Love with the fantasy and lightheartedness of Goldfinger. The film's plot is simple. Renegade Soviet General Orlov uses stolen Russian treasures to pay exiled Afghan Prince Kamal Khan into using his smuggling partner Octopussy's travelling circus to sneak an atomic bomb onto a West German US airbase. Of course, the audience is not let in on this scheme straight away. Rather, the film doles out information piece by piece and lets the audience figure the villain's scheme out for themselves. This is actually one of Octopussy's greatest strengths. It assumes that its audience is intelligent enough to figure out what is going on for themselves. The From Russia with Love aspects of Octopussy can mostly be seen in the London and German sequences. The scene at Sotheby's is based on the Ian Fleming short story, The Property of a Lady. It is one of the best scenes in the film, as it pits Bond and Kamal Khan in a battle of wits. Similarly, the German sequences take on the mantle of a spy thriller. Some people may find this crazy, but I think the German sequences have shades of John le Carré's Smiley's People or Len Deiden's Funeral in Berlin about them. Having picked together all the aspects of Khan and Orlov's plot, Bond must race against the clock to prevent a nuclear explosion. Every obstacle is placed in Bond's path. He must hitchhike, fend off police in a stolen car, and battle his way through a crowded circus tent before disarming the bomb. Like From Russia with Love, Octopussy is one of the few Bond films to deal directly with the Cold War and the spectre, no pun intended, of nuclear weapons. Orlov may be a renegade general, but what he is doing still occurs within the context of the Cold War. His desire to cause the withdrawal of NATO forces in Western Europe, thus paving the way for a Soviet invasion, is clearly based on the geopolitical factors at play in the early 80s. Furthermore, Octopussy is smart enough to do this without becoming unbearably dull. As I stated above, Octopussy is also influenced by the fantasy and light-hearted elements of Goldfinger. This is mostly notable in the pre-title sequence and in the Indian sequence. Like the pre-title sequence in Goldfinger, the pre-title sequence in Octopussy is its own separate mini-adventure. It features a beautiful woman in the form of Bianca, Bond flying a BD-5 jet, and some pretty impressive special effects. The Goldfinger aspects of the film are ramped up during the Indian sequence, which, it must be said, is actually the weakest part of the film. It is during this period that elements of myth and fantasy in Bond become fully apparent. Indeed, some, such as Roger Moore, have compared the film to the once popular Boys' Own Adventure series of yesteryear. Most notable of the Indian sequence is a scene where Bond becomes the target of the hunt. This, by the way, was based on the short story The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. Octopussy was Roger Moore's sixth appearance as James Bond. Moore was already in his middle 50s by the time this film entered production and was arguably too old to be playing James Bond. However, thanks to Moore's performance, clever casting, and a well-written script, Moore's age never becomes a problem. Unlike A View to a Kill, this film does not make the mistake of trying to make Bond appear younger than he is. Rather, Octopussy presents us with a Bond who is wiser and more experienced. This is a Bond who, whilst he cracks his obligatory and often cringe-inducing one-liners, still comes across as a kind of elder statesman. Octopussy is also smart enough to pair Bond with women who are appropriate for his age. Christina Wayborn was around 33 in this film, but the character she plays, Magda, comes across as mature and intelligent. Likewise, Maud Adams, who plays the titular character Octopussy, was in her late 30s in the film. She is depicted as an adult woman, more than capable of holding her own as a criminal and a businesswoman. Magda and Octopussy stand in stark contrast with later Bond girls like Madeline, where having an attitude is confused with maturity. I actually like the villains in Octopussy, though they do tend towards the ridiculous. Louis Jourdan is brilliant as the greedy and slimy exiled Afghan prince Kamal Khan. Khan is a man prepared to betray everybody and everything for his own personal gain. Similarly, Steven Berkoff has been criticised for his over-the-top performance as General Orlov. But then again, how exactly do people expect a crazed renegade Soviet general to act? The rest of the cast is alright. Kabir Bedi's Govinda has shades of Oddjob about him. However, he can at least talk and does appear to have some modicum of actual, agency. Bond's allies, Sedradin and Vijay, aren't really worth writing home to mum about. Finally, Octopussy introduces us to a new M in the form of Robert Brown. Brown's M continues on in much the same vein as Bernard Lee. Octopussy's strengths lie not in its filmmaking, but its story and its characters. That is not to say, however, that the filmmaking is lackluster. The direction, cinematography and editing are superb. The set design is decent, the special effects and stunts are good, although the music and titles do leave a bit to be desired. Octopussy is often ranked towards the bottom of non-fan based rankings of the Bond films. This is probably because those creating the rankings tend to focus on the film's low points, much like they do with The World Is Not Enough. However, look beyond these low points and you will find a tightly constructed Cold War thriller and an excellent James Bond film. My favourite part of Octopussy is the scene in which Bond confronts General Orlov. It is one of the best acting scenes I've seen Roger Moore in. My least favourite part is the car chase through Udaipur. It is filled with too many gags, lame jokes, and Indian stereotypes.